All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Trek podcast, conversations that inspire. And man, I'm super excited today to have an awesome guest, Taylor Cavanaugh. He's got an incredible story. I'm going to attempt to give him a decent bio here, but it's not going to do it justice. But super excited for you guys to hear this story. So yeah, today our guest Taylor Cavanaugh. So Taylor is a living example of transformation through adversity. He holds the rare distinction of being the only known person to have served as both a U.S. Navy SEAL and French Foreign Legionnaire. But his story didn't begin in uniform. Taylor's early life was marked by instability, thrill chasing, and time behind bars. Rather than letting those moments define him, he used them as a fuel to completely rewrite his narrative. After serving in two of the world's most elite military units, Taylor's mission today is centered on personal growth, spiritual restoration, and helping others find meaning through hardship. His story is one of discipline, grit, and a powerful faith that pulled him from the edge and put him on a path of service, redemption, and purpose. So whether you're facing a personal mountain or simply striving to become a stronger version of yourself, Taylor's journey is a powerful reminder that it's never too late to change direction and that the trek doesn't end when the storm hits. It's when it truly begins. So
Yeah,
excited, brother. Let's get into it.
man, never too late to rewrite the narrative. I like that, man. That's so true, dude. And when that storm starts, that's when all the interesting stories start in the trek, bro. You know what I mean? That's when
That's
shit
right,
gets
man.
interesting.
Yeah, it's like, so, our company, when we started this, like about a year and a half ago, Beyond the Trek, like we kind of centered it on we have those things in life that define us, whether it was a career, and that can be to a huge fault. And I know,
Yeah,
speaking personally, that's definitely the case for me too. But it's like whether it's success or hardship, setbacks, it's not that defines you. It's what you do beyond that and what you take and
yeah.
the legacy that you leave afterwards, man. And man, I can think of no one else that epitomizes that better than you, man. So
Look,
super excited.
yeah, thanks, man. It's like I always say, dude, like some people are just a lot smarter, and so their path's a little smoother. And some guys who are a little hard headed, maybe they're listening, they understand that, you learn, but with that hard hand. Right? It's like training a pit bull, dude. You can't be fluff with them. You gotta kind of be rough, to train them. And God had a heavy hand on me, but also protected me through a lot of things. And I think that that always was that's not lost on me. A lot of call it luck, call it guidance, call it lot protection, man. I've been saved from a lot of things that that I'm grateful for. And so, yeah, that path started with me as a young kid growing up in San Diego, a little bit of tumultuous being raised, but I think a lot of people have family issues and stuff, and but I was supported, right? Whether they're my parents went through their stuff, but I was supported and I always felt loved, so I'm grateful for that. My mom's a rock. We just had a great Mother's Day, a little hike and stuff, so that was really cool seeing her, and then also just on the backside being able to her to be proud of me and not be worried and all those things. That's been really nice to kind of see that full circle thing. But yeah, man, I just getting in trouble. I got kicked out of high school, stacked some problems, lost some scholarship opportunities, just fumbled the bag, right? From a very fumbled the bag, dude. In high school, went to college, fumbled that bag too. Was still given some opportunities to play, and I got kicked out like first football season immediately. The dean, kind of pushed me off campus, and so there I am. I'm doing masonry, doing lugging bricks, trying to go play at a JC and go to school, get some credits up, and dude, it just wasn't working. I was doing drugs, dealing drugs, fucking just lost, man. I knew I wanted to go in the military though. That was, but it was like I got to finish college first. It kind of felt like an extension of high school. I didn't even really look at going into the military right away. My mom was like, "Oh, my grandfather was a captain in the Navy and Naval Academy graduate." And so my mom was like, "Well, you got to go to college. If you're going to go in the military, you have to be an officer." So I was like, "Oh," but I didn't even know what that entailed, right? I just knew like, okay, it was just an extension of high school, and so I was like, I got to get this done. And so, but that was 5 years it took me of just a lot of stacking some problems, and I stacked a lot of misdemeanors, a lot of arrests, a lot of stuff. And by the time I was getting out, I had to go to jail, clean up some stuff, and to even have the opportunity to talk to a recruiter, which is that's how much self awareness I lacked. I didn't even really know that your decisions matter. I was like, they let anybody in the military. What do you mean, dude? I could just go in and and that's it. But that wasn't the case. And then I had a big administrative hurdle to get over with that regarding getting a SEAL contract, but ended up doing it, and then I shipped, man, in 2010.
No, man. And it's funny too. I definitely want to go into all that, but just going back to kind of, everybody has their family issues, dude, and that's so true, man. Show me somebody who hasn't experienced that, man, and it's like it's hard not to show you somebody lying, but it's cool, man. And I'm sure you've experienced this over Mother's Day to kind of you see that you see that growing up and you don't really hit that realization until like, man, they're human and they're trying. Like you
Yeah,
understand kind of the struggles they went through. They're figuring it out still. And it's
yeah,
like it allows you to kind of give them some grace a little bit.
yeah. And my dad's still going through it, man. And they're separated for many years, but he's still kind of struggling with his demons, and so it's they're human, right? It's like people are human, and my mom is solid, so I'm grateful for that, to have that solid rock. And then I'm really grateful now because as kids, or as anybody, you should be better than your parents were,
Ideally.
socioeconomically, morally. Like that's if you just do a lateral step, you didn't really improve your legacies, your family's status, right? That's kind of how I look at it. It's like you should be going up, and whatever you start at, it's a successful life if you move up one a couple rungs, whether that be spiritually, morally, all the ways. Your family, just a little bit more familial stability and financial stability. That was my goal. Was I just wanted those things more stable than my parents had, and my dad was better than his dad was, right? So I want to be better than my dad was, and that's the good progression.
No, for sure, man. I mean, that's usually their mission is to go out and make kids that are going to outdo them and go and continue on the legacy, just like you said. But yeah, man, you always had that drive to serve. You were an awesome athlete coming out of school. I know you said that. Well, just from hearing you on other platforms, lacrosse, which is funny because that's like I didn't even really, I didn't really know even what lacrosse was until I went to college, and we had a great lacrosse team, because there's a bunch of guys in New York and from that in Maryland,
Yeah,
Virginia, like where it's powerful. And
yeah,
then, grew up playing football and wrestling was like my life too, man. And but yeah, so I mean, I knew you were a great athlete. That kind of set you up, kind of,
where'd you go to
on that
school?
path. And so I went to West Point, and I only
Yeah,
got in there, man. From I know you said your grandpa was a Naval Academy
yeah,
grad. Wrestling's the only reason I got in there, man. I had to kind of go the long way too. I had to go to the prep school, which is when
yeah,
you go there, you're actually like an enlisted soldier,
yeah. My grandpa went to
initially.
prep school too. To
You
get
went to
in.
Nats? All right, man. I think
Yeah,
it's in. I'm trying to think. Is it in Newport, or it's in like
yeah, I
Rhode
believe
Island or
so.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he ended up
yeah.
having to do that also.
It was the best year, man. Of all 5 years, it was the best year. You got paid the most. You kind of had the most freedom, and I just built some lifelong bonds, man. But being in that room every day with those guys on the wrestling team, man, it was like I just talked to somebody else recently on a podcast we did, and I was like, it's hard to even in the military, man, from my experience to enter another room where you find that group of motivated individuals that you're going to
Yeah,
be around. It's far and few between. And you talked about too, jumping ahead a little bit, but talking about your buds class. I mean, it sounded
yeah,
like that was very similar. You had guys that are currently still serving. They're at the tip
yeah,
of the spear now.
yeah,
It's another level, man. There's nothing that can kind of boost you levels than being surrounded. They say there's that quote about you're the average of the five people you
yeah.
spend the most time with, man. I think that's very true.
Man, you gave me the chills kind of talking about that because just bringing back memories. Dude, I can imagine you guys had some barn burner workouts on the West Point wrestling team, dude. You gotta have, hope you got your dick kicked in, dude. That must have been brutal.
It absolutely was, man. And it's funny you said barn burner. We actually made a new term called, I think our head coach called it barn soaker. I was like, which just
Yeah,
sounded hilarious,
just
man. Because
tripping
like,
down the walls. Yeah,
oh, it felt like you walked into a greenhouse, man, and it was
yeah,
like guys getting into sometimes guys getting into fist fights, and it was like which you said at the beginning of the show, man, talking about knuckle draggers, that was absolutely me, man. Like I was academically skirting by the skin of my teeth. And the
yeah,
great thing about that place, man, is you have a lot of people who are there to help you, whether
yeah,
it's officers or just your class, because I'm surrounded by people that are all smarter than me. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, if I needed help, I could go seek that out. But man, and then I think I had some friends that some of my brothers that went on to do great things on the mat, and then especially afterwards. But
Yeah.
dude, I was a 4-year backup, and it was like I think like being an army wrestler is one of the hardest things in the world. Being a backup army wrestler for 4 years, dude, I
Yeah.
think I would
Uh,
argue that
that's
it's
tough.
up
That's
there
more
with.
tough, dude.
But yeah, it was definitely a grind, man.
Well, that had to be kind of psychologically interesting thing because, especially if you back up going to that level. I mean, you're the stud from your hometown, right? You're the fucking man, right? I mean,
Big
you're
fish in a
starting.
small pond, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're the dude running shit, and then you go and you're like, what the fuck? I mean, that's got to be an interesting psychological game because you're like, dude, I've never not started anywhere. That's got to be a
It's a
weird
culture
game.
shock, man. It's a you got to kill your ego. Well, I mean, you don't really have to because it
Yeah,
naturally
yeah,
happens
yeah,
for
yeah,
you, man. You figure that out quick, and it's
yeah,
like you talk about. It was like a baptism in humility kind of
yeah,
deal.
yeah. Everybody gets it, man. The people that don't get it, it shows. That's what I say. The people that you can't even talk to somebody that hasn't been humbled yet. I go, it's just a matter of time because some get it early and hard, and some get it late. I'd rather get it early, right? So then you can actually talk to people on the level. When you communicate with somebody that's been through it, it's obvious. There's like a different energy about people that have kind of seen some shit or experienced some hardship or pushed themselves really hard and failed and kept going. It's just a different type of a grit or energy that you can't fake a frequency like that. You touch something once people touch that, it's like that law of exposure. Once exposed, can't be unexposed. It's like once people are exposed to that energy, that's their new baseline, or at least that's in their new normal, and it's very apparent.
No, I completely agree 100%, man. You can you can definitely tell there's an aura about them, or just you feel it, and you can tell that it's genuine, man. And it's like they've been through it, and you can relate to it. There was I wanted to touch on something, man, too. So I believe this was too when you're the college years and everything, going through it, getting kicked out, coming back, going the junior college route. And a quote that stuck out that I want you to touch on, man, is you know what rain means. So
Yeah,
going into that story a little bit, man, that was a really
yeah,
cool experience.
yeah, dude. I was like downtown San Diego, and this like homeless guy, and he's like, "Hey, you know what rain means? Change, man." And he wasn't. He was very lucid, right? It wasn't crazy. It was just it. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay, old timer, just kind of like. But it sat with me, man, and I thought about it, and I was 19 too, and nothing sat with me at 19, But then I woke up one morning, man, and it was raining, and it was like October 19th, 2004, I think, the date. I remember it, and I
To the
woke
date,
up,
man. Yeah.
and I remembered it was a Tuesday. 'Cause I remember I had taken this chick out to Hooters for Monday Night Football the night before, so that's why I
I
remember it.
love it.
And I remember waking up going, man, my life is so hollow and something terrible is about to happen. It's that authentic voice of God, man. That people call it moment of clarity. It was God speaking to me, like, get the fuck out of there. Dead serious. That morning, that moment, I mean, and 30 minutes later, I was up and I called my dad, who had his issue, but he can deal with crisis, man. So as I could kind of tell him the flat line, I'm like, hey, I need to come over here. I gave him all the money I had, all the drugs I had, and I keys to my truck. I said, I need to get out of here. And I did. And I didn't come back for 2 years. And it was, I went to Boston and just went junior college, trained Muay Thai. But when I left, a bunch of people got arrested. A lot of shit happened. I went to get prison for a long time, and it was just very lucky. And, but I listened, right? And those moments that I'd say, well, and anytime it rains now, I think that every time rain means change. And so I always use it as kind of this catalyst. All right, what do I need to change? What needs to wash away? Right? What new thing needs to take its place? And just I use it as a slight self audit still. And that's really what it is. It's like an honest self audit.
No, I love that, man. That's just something that hit me. And I think, everybody has those moments, and God works in mysterious ways for sure. And, through sometimes people you'd least expect it, and you have those moments where it's like, usually, dude, it just drops you to your knees. Like I've had some similar experiences, man, and it's just like, you just get hit emotionally, man. Like it just like,
Yeah.
and it. That's how you hear that, and it does. It allows you to perform that self audit, man. So you're going through it at this point. You still have, the main goal of the military. You want to be an operator and perform at the highest level. But first you chose the Marines, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's always
did.
funny, man. It's always the Marines. It feels like everyone I talk to, it's like they wanted to be a Marine first, and we don't know if it's the way that they, they're just how their commercials and all the stuff. How they,
They market
their
well.
recruiting is, their
Yeah.
marketing. Yeah, their
They
marketing is
market awesome.
incredible.
It's a great. Also, my dad was a Marine. I grew up on a Marine base. So I grew up on an old Chinook base in like Tustin, Orange County. And so I was familiar with the culture, right, growing up around that. And I liked it. I liked the edge. Right? First to fight, all that stuff, the devil dogs. And I was like, it was the fastest path to getting a gun. Right, that's the way I looked at it. It was the fastest path to get
Every
me over.
Marine a rifleman.
Yeah, so
That's
that's the
right.
way I looked at it, but I got denied. Tattoos they didn't let me, and so I couldn't get in. I couldn't even enlist. I went into the officer recruiter, and they were like, "You can't even enlist. We're not even letting you." So that was done, and there was no getting around it. Then I went to the Army. They did not take me. They would not. And I remember leaving the Army recruiter, and there was this fat kid doing a step ups in the office. And I went, "You're gonna let that guy in and not me,
Yeah.
man? Fuck!"
Yeah.
The recruiter's like, "Man, it just is what it is." And it, I was down and out. That's when I started researching the Foreign Legion a little bit more. I had already known about them as a kid, learning about just being in that world and interested in it. Came back on my radar at this time, but I still had student loans and things. I graduated, by the way. It just took me a while, but I had things to clear up for debts and just stuff like that I didn't want to leave the country on. And I wanted to be in the United States military. That's what I really wanted to do. So I pushed the pace. Another moment of clarity. Went to the Navy. Was very clear about the things I had on my rap sheet, essentially. But all the dispositions are clear, and they said they can work with it. And so that's when I went down that path and got it approved. It took about a year, 9 months or a year before I shipped, and then I was good to go.
Yeah, the story about you going to the Navy recruiter and him giving you your two options, man. That was
Yeah,
awesome. It was funny, but it was like, man, it's like what were the two options? I mean,
yeah. He's
obviously
like,
one of
dude,
them was a SEAL.
he's like, you can wrangle shit or be a Navy SEAL, dude. He's like, you got no real middle ground. And I was like, well, good, because I'm here to be a Navy SEAL. He said, if you can pass all the physical screening tests and all the stuff and the ASVAB and all the stuff that required, and get letters of recommendation and waivers, then we can make it happen. But if not, because I had drug charges, no convictions, but a lot of charges. Wrong place, wrong time is what I like to tell my my top secret clearance investigators. They're like, you have a lot of charges, and I'm like, a lot of wrong place, wrong times, But uh, it, that was the case, and it was powerful because it was destiny kind of all coming together. I don't know how else to explain it, man. I mean, the thing I really wanted to do since a child, that was the only option.
Yeah, no plan B.
I didn't even have the option of a plan B. There was no other, literally, there was no other option. No other branch would take me. It was the only job I could get besides something, I wasn't really trying to do. So it was pretty powerful.
No, man, for sure. And you're like everything you're doing is like it revolves around that. And you told a story too about kind of what you were doing when you're in that process of getting those letter of recommendation and like working with the SEAL motivator. That was something that really spoke to me too. Like because you're in the grind. You said you were like out stacking boxes, out like just working to keep some money in your pocket and stuff, and
Yeah.
then just building yourself up just to earn a SEAL contract. This wasn't like there were no guarantees behind this. You're just out there in the grind while
Yeah.
you're just working towards this life goal that you've set.
Yeah. I mean, I'm getting the chills kind of thinking back on it just because I remember that time. And I was happy too, right? That was also when it doesn't matter what phase you are in the path. If you're working towards the goal you want, you're very aligned, right? because really once you achieve the goal, there's another thing. So really that doesn't really matter. When it doesn't matter what phase you're at, anybody watching this, once you step onto that path and you know you're actually working towards the goals you want, you have a lot of inner peace and clarity. I had a lot of inner peace and clarity at that time. Once I had no inner peace and clarity when I had no options, but once I started actually working in and I had a clear, direct, like got through MEPS, was in that thing. Had my little job at Home Depot during the graveyard shift, and finding the right people to talk to and work out in person, down the Naval Amphibious Base and Pendleton and all these other areas. And sometimes I'd be the only motherfucker to show up at these workouts. Dead serious. It'd be like one active duty SEAL and me. And he'd be like, all right, we're going on a 7-mile run. Dude, I hadn't run more than a mile in like years, bro. And I was like dead. And I'm puking. And he was like, damn, this dude will just keep showing up. But I was embarrassed. Right, I didn't feel good about what I was like, man, I had a lot of self-doubt, but I knew that this is what I had to do. And there was just no way around it. Also, I looked at it as my only option, so I had to keep going. But yeah, no guarantees. There are never any guarantees. And I saw a quote that was good. It's your ability to manage uncertainty is the cap on your success. Whatever that is, right? Your ability, nobody knows. If you're willing to manage in a strategic way massive amounts of uncertainty, you have a lot of upside potential, because it's stress management and it's just managing fear of not knowing what the fuck is going to happen. And so that was the only currency I had, was my ability to manage uncertainty and have like a delusional confidence about it, at least to just keep going.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm sure, and definitely today, it served you well on the other side of everything, man. Like, I couldn't imagine, because what was the deal, kind of? Because I know, going back a little bit, the Marine recruiter was like, dude, you're on parole right now. Like,
Yeah.
I can't, like, you can't join. And then you went through all of them, and then you finally get in with the Navy. You put everything on paper, man. And like, having to experience, it wasn't the deal. Your lawyer kind of got it knocked down, like, hey, everything's going to get wiped if you just go do 4 months.
Yeah. It was like, they're like, we'll give you 6 months in Bay Area, downtown fucking lockdown facility. And I was like, fine. Fucking, I was like, fine, dude, it's better than waiting 3 years. 3 years was not an option. And I was going to be, I wasn't trying to be 26, 27 going into butts or whatever else I was trying to do. So that seemed fair. And so I did it, and no guarantee, right? And even that, I kind of slipped through the cracks, because technically you're not supposed to go into the military after having served a certain amount of time. You need a gap, but I didn't know that. So I was blissfully unaware. And so I just went in there and did it, man, because it was what needed to happen. Right. And everybody told me it was a bad idea. That's the other piece, dude. Don't listen to people who aren't living your path. Everyone who told me it was a terrible idea. That they're like, you're gonna ask to go to jail, like, dude, that's ridiculous. And it worked out great. But I knew it was the right call, because staying on probation, I couldn't even talk to the military for 3 more years. That wasn't an option. So be very clear about what you need. Be clear about what your cut and dry is. If 3 years is too much, then any other answer is better. Doesn't matter what. Just don't look at what it is. Just be like, is it a means to an end? Let's do it. And that's what, that was a useful time.
Just like temporary suffering for reward, but your temporary suffering would lead to some more suffering that you're going to end up going through that route.
Yeah.
With buds. I remember you telling the story about when you were heading out, and you had experienced some pretty dark stuff in there too during your time. And just on your way out, the guard was asking you, the CO was asking you, what are you off to do next? And you're like, I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL, and him laughing at you.
Yeah, he laughed. He was prior Marine, and he's like, okay, dude. And I was like, the hell? It's off kind of how rude, but
Yeah.
I was walking out at midnight and from jail, dude, and it was delusional, the odds were definitely against me. And I didn't really understand that. I was pretty immature, but I was still very focused, and It proved to be not correct, right? It proved to be that, man, things that are seem unreasonable aren't, right? As long as you're just willing to actually do it, it's like people go, only 1% pass who come into the recruiter, and they're like, well, I'm the 1%. I don't know what to tell you. There has to be a 1%, right? Well, who the fuck are those guys? It's like, like you going into, how many people make it into West Point? Fuck, not many, but you're like, I'm going to put my packet in anyway. Right? It's like, I'm going to go prep school, but you do what you need to do to get you the results you want.
Yeah, if you have that clear end state in mind, and you leave, kind of like no other options, like this is what I'm doing, I'm fully committed into it. It makes it a little better. It kind of adds a little more clarity for you. So yeah, man, you finally you get through buds. You end up on the West Coast still, right? You go over to
Yeah.
Team 7. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, go and do a little bit your time in the teams, and just that whole experience in general.
Yeah, the time in the teams was great, man. The culture was fantastic. The leadership was good. Right? That's the military, so you always have this or that. But I was really happy with the platoon I was in. We went to Yemen, Iraq a couple of years later, and I got really good schools. Sniper, JTAC, comms guy. So I had a advent laden specialist, which was really cool. I got a lot of schools and was happy to be there, man. There early, training in the gym super early, love the culture, running on the beach in the afternoon, and I loved it. Fucking, I loved it. I would have stayed in forever, probably, bro. That's probably a good thing I got kind of forced out because I would have been 35 years there, bro. But as things happen, right? If you don't protect the things that are important to you, you always lose them. And that's I thought I was protecting it by working hard, but there's a whole other piece, which is the off the field piece. Right? There's a whole other part of it's like a football player. You could be great on the field, but if you have off the field problems, you ain't great on the field because you ain't on the field. And that was what was happening. And I got pulled off line once for a fight, and then some legal battles, and that was serious. And then beat that, and then get in trouble again a few months later. Just just absolutely after being on this trajectory up with early promotes and up for even higher ranks very early on in my career, then breaking it down really quickly. It's like one off fuck to remove 1,000 attaboys. That was it, bro. And I was stacking a couple off fucks back to back, and that's what I put the nail in the coffin, right? I failed the performance enhancing drug test that Navy JAG gave me, and that was it. Steroid test, man. So that was zero tolerance. I took a general discharge, and I was out. I had to serve some more time, and I went to jail twice as an active duty SEAL, which is just insane. And then on that second one out, I signed a DD 214 and was out, dude, after 7 years.
And man, that story, some people who have heard you before, I'm sure they're familiar with this, but like for our audience who may have not heard, you tell a story about the time where you were facing a trial by jury, and they allowed you to deploy to Iraq.
Yeah.
And so you're going over there. What it takes me to is just trying to the headspace that you had to be in, man. Like you're already, but it's like even the dangerous environment that you're in, like the life or death environment that you're in day to day, like you have this looming over your head. How were you able to still operate at the level you needed to operate on your team, knowing that you had this like hell that you were going to be coming back to on the other end?
I wasn't as good as I could have been, right? I mean, truthfully, I was very focused, tribal lead. We were doing stuff with the Sunni tribal fighters and just building out a fob and this, while taking rockets every once in a while. It wasn't crazy hot, but it was enough was going on to where, you had to kind of keep your head on a swivel. And man, it was fine in the beginning, but as that redeployment date came up, it was starting to get, I was like, oh shit, right? I found every person I could talk to volunteer to stay there longer, dead serious. And they approved me to stay out there longer just to kick the can down the road a little bit. And it ended up not sticking, but that ended up helping me because it pushed my court date a little bit. But it was it would come in waves. It was a real practice. I trained every day, lifted hard as fuck every day, 180 days straight, didn't miss a day. And I was yoked because I was fighting my demons, man. And it was hard because people are looking forward to coming home. I was not, which is weird, right? That's a weird feeling to be in when that C-17's landing and you're like, I don't want to get on. It's like it was very strange, I will say. And there was other stresses at the team with stuff, and man, it was challenging to say the least. It was a dark cloud, and it would come every once in a while. I would be in the moment, trying to stay present. It was a lot of practice in staying present. That was useful, and then every once in a while, your mind would wander and go, "Oh fuck, I'm facing 6 years in prison, right? Plus 3 parole," and they were holding on to that for a long time. So it was challenging, man, to say the least. Just plugging in here.
Yeah, it's finding what type of headspace you got to be in for that, man. And I was first exposed to this. I had the opportunity when I was a junior cadet. I got to go down to Special Warfare Group 2 down in Little Creek, and I was working with their human performance and cognitive psychs down there. And that's kind of where I first got exposed to like mindfulness and stuff. And one of the things
Yeah,
they were doing, especially for getting guys ready to ship out, and then when they came back home too, just kind of because that's one of the hardest things, man. I think especially whenever you have this anxiety from this whatever trial and tribulation you're going to face is like, how do I stay present? How do I be the best version of myself? And you were in the refiner's fire with that, man, while you're over the whole time, and then having to come back and then finally face it head on.
yeah, the refiner's fire, man. That was the truth, dude. And then coming back and having relationship things that were going on. And I found out my chick I was dating at the time was smoking heroin. Imagine, so I had to kick her out, and she was stealing from my mom. It was hectic, dude. It was like coming back to just fucking like, what the hell, man?
Can't make this
But
up. Yeah.
when it rains, it pours, dude. But that's what was happening, and I couldn't see it then, but it was all happening strategically for a reason, right? I mean, it was but trying to stay present, being my best self, training, working out, like keeping those good habits going. That was always happening, and just trying to really maintain presence. And I didn't really touch in mindfulness yet. I hadn't understood that piece deliberately, like what mindfulness actually meant, what being deliberate about the way my thought patterns were going. I didn't quite get that yet, right? And so that came later.
Yeah, and then you finally are on the other end of all that stuff. You get on the other end of that trial goes better than expected, and um, and the thing they get you out with, man, is the steroids. I was like, Navy Jags in general, man, and I've been on the receiving end of this as well. It's just they there is pride on the line for them too, and man, it's like they don't want to lose. It's like even if
Yeah,
it's at the expense of kicking out a warrior, or somebody who was doing good things. I'm not saying that as like that was me, but it's the lengths they'll go to, and it's like, hey, we got to get this guy out of here somehow.
yeah. I was beating the new case too, and they were like, "Oh my God, this dude's not slipping through the cracks again, man." And they sent my test to the Olympic Testing Center. They paid like thousands of dollars to send it to like the legit thing, and there was no getting out of that one, bro.
No, yeah, and then so you get out, and I know you said luckily or fortunately you had some good guys in your corner, so you didn't get the worst thing slapped on you when it came to the discharge. You got out with
Yeah,
a
I was given some grace with that from the commanding officer. I got a lot of respect for him. He's like, this guy's a knucklehead, but he's not a fucking like bad dude. And so he had the ability to bump it from an OTH to a general under honorable discharge, which is fucking amazing, right? With benefits and stuff. It just was super helpful for me.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely that was like the best case scenario, man. And that's awesome. So
Yeah.
you get out of there, and that's like your whole purpose is kind of like, and we talk about this often, the search for purpose, and that was from the time you were, 7 years old. That's what you wanted to do. And
Yeah.
then this is stripped away from you.
Yeah.
Kind of talking about, that little transition period where, and I know you did get into lucrative business after that, but kind of like, all right, what's next now?
Yeah. I shelved it. I didn't even think about it. I walked out of jail and just shelved it for better or worse, right? I think it was probably for worse because I didn't really, I process it at all. I walked out of jail on a Thursday. That Monday, I'd started into a new career, right? I had set it up that way, and man, it was. I just started doing Adderall and Xanax and going running a million miles an hour, right? And drinking. I was sipping vodka every day at the gym at 5 p.m., dude. I was shaking my shaker. I'm like, it felt like vacation. I was retired, bro. Out of the military. I'm retired, bro. Like, like, hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and I'm like lifting weights with my little shaker, with my, and bro, I didn't see how that was not normal because I didn't really have any purpose anymore. I had no reason not to, right? When you're training in the SEAL teams, that ain't going on because you ain't gonna be doing that and showing up, and it just was different. I was training for something. Now I'm just living life. So I'm like in this immediate gratification, pleasure seeking phase. Like, oh, you can just feel good, work hard, work, and then do what you want. And I had my my internal discipline was not good. I didn't really understand that I needed to maintain it even more so now. So I was like, well, I don't really have to not drink, so why not? And I wasn't sloppy and like going around, but it was just you're not your best self, and it's like, it you can't bend reality that long. And then I stacked on an opiate habit a year later, right? Doing that. Now I'm doing all that shit and opiates, and working hard still, right? It wasn't like playing fuck games. I'm sending emails all night, raising capital now in a different business venture and building out facilities and doing all this stuff. And so nobody was saying anything to me yet because I was still crushing it from an outside perspective. But my relationship was just being destroyed myself. I'm still working out every day. So I'm like, whatever, dude, but it was mostly ego driven. It wasn't like health driven, as you could tell. And that was all good until it wasn't. Facts. But when it wasn't, it was not. And everything came crumbling down all at once. And job's gone, money's gone, girl's gone, everything's gone, title's gone. And then I'm homeless in my truck. That was 2 years almost to the day. 2 years and some change. From when I walked out of jail the first time, DD 214, to this point, right? That had been 2 years and some change.
Yeah, you talk about, stacking karmic debt. That was something that definitely, spoke to me a little bit. We also talk about a lot about, it's, becoming disciplined, resilient leaders for yourself, having that self-awareness, but then also for those who depend on you. So you came out of an environment where others depended on you.
Yeah.
And their lives depended on you, you
Yeah.
being able to do your job, and you come into this completely new world, man, where it's like, the world is your oyster, and it's like, it's on you. And it's like, so you don't really have that feeling where, I don't got to worry about, if I'm getting up and drinking or whatever. And, I'm dependent on myself is
Yeah.
what it is at the time. It was like, I guess a little, kind of a little anecdote off that. It was a video Jimmy shared, I think it was like a few weeks ago, and talking about you coming to pick him up, man, when he was on the run. He was on the run. He's like, he was smelling like watermelon vodka, man, but he was there for me in a time I needed it. I got a
Yeah.
good laugh out of that. That was too good, man.
And it was true. It was true, man, because he was fucking for real, man. I was, he called me, and dead serious. This is a real story. I don't think I've ever told this story, but he calls me and he's like, "Hey, Cap, man, I'm in a bad way. I kind of need you." I'm like, in the bathroom, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there, dude." I was like, "You want to go to Palm Springs with me for 3 days? I got to build out this facility and do some shit. You want to just come out, I'll pick you up from the airport. We'll go the next morning." And he's like, listening. He goes, "Dude, are you chopping lines?" Dead serious. And I was. And I'm like, talking to him on the phone while I'm doing this, man. That was real. Like, that was real life, dude. And I'm going, looking back, I'm just, it didn't seem weird. And there was, because what I saw as normal was very skewed. I didn't know what normal was. That was the truth. I knew a very extreme version of working, which is in the SEAL teams, and then this, which was my only on me, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to feel. Right? It was like this I centered, centric, yeah, business stuff for others, but then I was like, what do I want to do? And it was very much what I wanted to do in the immediate.
It's like you have the people on the outside, they see this high performing individual that's out there getting it done, achieving everything, and then on the inside, like at home, it's a dumpster fire. That's
Bro, it
another
was
thing that we talked
dumpster
about, man.
fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like doing that self audit. You talked about that, and then getting back to that. So you're in the the real estate business, doing really well, and then you make a transition, and then you're out and you left to go to the islands, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was when I was pretty much cut off, kind of told to like go on a sabbatical, pretty much.
Okay.
And so I took like a sabbatical out there, but it was really me getting marooned. There was some personal relationship things going on with what the current business structure I was in, and so I wanted to get away. So I went away, moved my stuff out there. Emails get cut off, money gets cut off, so then I'm just out there, and that's really where I realized, oh shit, man, I am done. Like I'm tapped out, and I was waiting for a call that just never came. And so it was out there that I decided. I was in a suicidal state, man, for a few days with a sawed off in my car, thinking, "Damn, dude, I'm just tired of this. I'm just done." Right? And that's when I decided I wasn't going to do that by my hand, wasn't going to leave that type of damage, and I was going to go in the French Foreign Legion. And if I was going to die, I'd do it with my boots on. That's the way I thought about it.
Yeah, man. That you talk about that 3 day deliberation out in Hawaii, and was it what was in your bank account? You had like what was
Six
it like
bucks.
six
Six.
bucks, man.
Yeah, man, $6, dude.
Yeah, that's being in that headspace and like it coming full circle, man. I'm like just trying to see what's going through your head during this time. I mean, obviously it's probably defined as rock bottom. Like that's like the rock bottom moment. And you're like, "Hey, this is it. How do I eliminate what's the problem? The problem's me, and then how do I
Yeah,
solve the problem? I eliminate the problem."
yeah, that's exactly where it was. Where I also just didn't see any hope anymore. I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was looking at some random jobs, dude. I was like, dude, I gotta get like some money in immediately, bro. Like, I don't know what to do. So, like, what do you do? So that was where I was at, and I really had was just tired of trying. But I can't just get a regular job. Maybe there was
It's
some
not going to
ego wrapped
fulfill
up
you.
in there. What am I gonna do? Right? It has to be some level of like success, or I didn't who knows what it is, if it's an insecurity, if it's an overcompensation, or for whatever it might be. I needed some other title to make me feel good, and so that's when I was like, Foreign Legion, that's the next Hail Mary. Let's just go for that and write a cool story at least.
Yeah, man. So you make that decision, and then how quick are you off to France then, off to Paris?
And it was just a little under 2 weeks, man. Really, I was there. I was like, got my stuff together, offloaded the little stuff I had, pulled some fast cash loans out, and took a one-way flight out there, bro.
And you're all in, and it's like, hey, family, like you
Yeah,
might hear from me. I don't know when you'll hear from me, but this is what I'm doing, type deal.
yeah. I let my mom know what was up, just so he didn't think I died. Like, hey, if you don't hear from me in 5 months, that's a good thing. Like that means I've actually like made it, right? I cut my credit cards up before I went and knocked on the gate, so I had no means of getting home even if I wanted to. That looking back, that was a terrible decision. But I had heard they looked through your credit cards. I didn't know what I was thinking, but I was definitely done, man. Said my little prayer, bro, and then went in.
Yeah, and so you show up, and because you don't speak any French. Well, at the time you didn't speak any French or anything, right? You're about to
No.
join a French French military. Merci. You're about
Yeah.
to go do this. So just talk through a little bit about showing up, knocking on that door.
Yeah, it's a powerful moment, very unique. People don't know the French Foreign Legion. You just go knock on the door. There's no application, there's nobody, no interviews until later. Very unique. So you just show up, and with your bag and your passport, and they tell you to get up on the pull bar. And that's where you start. If you pass that bullet bar, then you go deeper into the bowels of the building, and that starts a month-long pre-selection and selection process. The first part's in civilian clothes, Interpol background checks, psychological evaluations, IQ tests, some you bring like some sports clothes, so you're doing some physical tests and dental. Right? That's pretty much that first part. They want to know what the fuck you doing here, right? Some preliminary questions. Then you go, if you pass all that, they give you your fake name, and they go, this is you now, and you start going into the selection process, which is all that test battery again, just deeper. And then the interrogations get much more deep. So they've already done more research on you now, and now they're really going to dive in. They dove into me pretty heavy. They call them the Gestapo interviews. But these guys are smart, man. These guys are guys that speak five languages, or high-ranking enlisted guys, but are very young, right? So they're like pretty high performers in the Foreign Legion, and they pick those guys, and they go through whatever training they go through, and they really sniff out weird body language or story. If something's not jiving, they'll just say no. So it's 1 out of 15 guys, because they don't want any issues with sexual crimes. If your story's not mixing, if they don't know who you are, at least they're not going to pick you, because they'll take the devil they know or the devil they don't know, right? They'll take problems and shit if they know what they're dealing with, but they won't take shit that they're just not sure of.
And it sounds like it's a motley crew, man, because I mean, going back to like they're kind of imitating the Roman legions about through earning citizenship. You're there with a pretty motley crew, guys from all over the world. You talked about Russians, Ukrainians, Koreans, all walks of life in there with you.
Yeah, 150 nations, man. Mongolia, Thailand, South America, Brazil, Colombia, right? South Africa, Colombia, Venezuela, all these different countries, man, are heavily represented. And they got a lot of guys from Nepal, a lot of guys from Romania, Hungary. So it's just totally different what you're getting. I've never been in a room with that many nations represented, and hearing all those different languages and lives, and it's definitely, and every guy's there just on an interesting path, all there for their different reasons. It's fascinating, but they all end up at the Foreign Legion.
And while you're there, and I believe you've talked about this, kind of some of the questions they had. One, like coming in, this is like a SEAL non-commissioned officer coming in, and it's like, this goes into that baptism in humility. It's like, you understand you're going to be pretty much swabbing decks again. You're going to be a specialist, essentially, the equivalent, U.S. equivalent to an E4.
I wish I was a specialist.
Yeah, they might have a little more freedom.
Yeah, dude, I wish I was a specialist, man. You are shark shit on the bottom of the ocean, man. When you're a Legionnaire, you're a foreign enlisted guy at the lowest rank, right? So picture that. So it's it's by the institution in general is very strict. It's got a long history of severe punishments and jails, and there's some crazy good old books from guys in the 1800s in the Foreign Legion. Oh shit, dude. Those guys used to get buried up to their neck in the desert in like Algeria for like 5 days. It's crazy, dude, what they used to do. But it's been more formalized now. It's less pirate. You still have a little bit of it, kind of trickles in, but fascinatingly unique institution of a lot of old traditions.
And I think it's cool too that probably a lot of people don't know, like the Legion swears allegiance to the Legion. It's not like it's under the arm of France, I suppose, but it's like at the end of the day, it's like they're not swearing allegiance, to the French flag or anything. It's like Legion above all.
Yeah, it's very unique, and they'll hammer their own, right? And that's why it's like, that they'll put a guy in jail who's been there 10 years for in the Legion for crossing the grass wrong. They don't give a fuck. They're hardcore, dude, and it's a tough institution. Useful, as a very useful tool for self-development if you use it correctly. And they do some interesting mission sets in the jungle. We deployed in the jungle, and we did some stuff with NATO on the Russian border in Estonia, and we did some internal domestic missions. They used the Foreign Legion to patrol interior of France, which is kind of unique. I mean, that would be illegal here, but they do it there. I was walking down the French Riviera with an HK 416, and the people love it. because we forget that they have a lot of risk of terrorism in Europe, right? They've had massive influxes of immigration. France in general is very dangerous. Marseille in South France was rated the most dangerous city in Europe when I was there. They had people getting shot with AKs, cars getting lit on fire. It's pretty hectic there. There's whole areas of that city that you can't go in, or that police don't go in. So it's got its edge, it's got its beautiful parts. I'm really glad to have experienced it.
No, I mean it's a wild story, man, and being over there, kind of having, because what kind of contact do you have with anybody back home, with any family or anything?
So when I got out, then it's kind of like normal military for the most part. It's strict. You're not going home. You're not going to vacation much or on the weekends. You're working a lot and your time's used up. You're not leaving the base during the week or anything like that. That's all kind of locked down. But on the weekends, but you do have your phone, right? You have your phone and you have access in that capacity. So, your contact's all right as far as like just phone and shit like that.
And so you had, I believe, was a 5-year contract with them, after you
Yeah.
come on. And so you hit some adversity there too, man, but it's an awesome pivot point, because it sounds like this is kind of the time that you really find that new purpose that you have. And it started with the stream of consciousness. Is that right?
Yeah. And so it really started with me realizing that the Foreign Legion wasn't making me happy. And then I realized, oh, I've only been looking for happiness with external validation. Very different, like you mentioned earlier. Like you can't. It's dangerous to wrap your identity up in something external of you. It's because it can be taken away, especially a job. So that's when I really started to just build myself up, ratchet down. I was like, well, times in my life I've been the most happy when I've been the most disciplined. So I just started doing that. Even cutting away, going places in the Legion, focusing on my own self development, studying, getting up early, tracking my food, just holding myself to a higher standard, moral standard. Not going out with chicks and this and that, just being better. Cutting out porn and just all that stuff that just can hold you back. And that I was like, well, this isn't serving me anymore. That stuff, right? I'm not saying be a monk. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm saying I just really got razor specific about what I was doing and things that built me and didn't break me, or even chip away at me. And if I started to dip, recognizing why am I in a low vibrational state, fixing it, right? Doing some push-ups, going getting sunlight, just holding myself accountable to my internal state more. And that was a game changer, because then I really started to have good days every day for like years. Even in the Foreign Legion, my financial discipline was better. I was saving money, making no money, right? Which was, just being better in all capacities. And then things really started to clear up.
Yeah, it's the elimination of that, instant gratification for, that delayed gratification, man, and figuring that out. And, they had an issue obviously with you, making these videos, and them, you probably didn't think they were going to blow up the way they did, hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of views and things like that. And, they're like, hey, you got to take this stuff down. And you're kind of hitting in a rock and a hard place. Like, all right, this, this foreign military that I'm now a part of is kind of like, hey, either we're going to lock you up type deal, because like you said, they operate on a little different set of rules, or am I going to stand firm and like, hey, no, I can use the word of my testimony to kind of go out and help people live in my story, or similarities to my story that might help them. And it's just something very powerful, man, that jumped out to me about you weren't going to compromise that. You weren't going to take it down no matter what you were facing. And talking to a lawyer, and you're like, dude, like it doesn't matter. Like they can they're going to do whatever they want. Like, but you could just head back to the U.S. essentially and
Yeah.
kind of start this new life away from there, man. So, and I know we're kind of wrapping up on time, brother. But just you get on the other side of that, and you start really finding this avenue where you're able to reach out to people and be able to touch thousands, hundreds of thousands of people with your story, and being super vulnerable. That's something we talk about a lot on our episodes, is vulnerability, strength and vulnerability. What was once looked at as weak and being non-masculine, how powerful that can be. Just
Yeah.
coming out. And we live in a world where, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite because there are times when it hits me like we care about what other people think of us.
Yeah.
And it's being able to die to self, and die to ego, and realize like, hey, I'm going to use this. People are going to think what they're going to think about me, but the thing I'm not entitled to is people's opinion.
Yeah.
That's their own. And you get on the other side of this, man. Like it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, there's a way to go about it, right? I mean, that was the thing is once I cracked the seal, the iron was hot, the momentum was going. I was clear about I had got done what I needed to get done, and when there was irreconcilable differences, there's irreconcilable differences, right? And that was just what it was. It's like, okay, like they'll burn me fast as anything else. It's like so, and the lawyer's like, yeah, dude, you're not a citizen. You have no legal rights here. You're in a very legal gray area. I'm not going to sit and just for some go on food discipline and lose 30 pounds locked up in a cell. I'm like, bro, that ain't happening, dude. Don't be a fucking idiot, right? Take information and pivot when you need to, right? And so that is what it was. So we did that, and being able to work in purpose is massive, right? And when I really started going, hey, dude, I was about to kill myself, and I didn't. I appreciate it. And also working with CEOs, business owners, doctors, people, everybody can benefit from having outside perspective and shit and better discipline, a better plan. If your life isn't how you want it to be, what you're doing is not working. Fucking facts. You need to change something. And if your body's not, your finances aren't, your relationships not, something needs to be introduced. And most of it's a lot of subtraction. And that takes a process, a clean blueprint, clean, simple daily blueprint, holding yourself to a higher standard, and superior moral conduct. There's no way around it. Anybody who tries to live an excellent life or an A+ life, but their fitness is a D, their morals are a C-, they're fucking, D, F, that doesn't equal an A+ life. So don't expect that shit. And when we really start taking accountability, shit gets better. When we point all the fingers at ourselves, now we're empowered, because now we're empowered to change it.
Absolutely, brother. And it's you can't always be 100% in every area. I've talked to a few people about this. Sometimes you burn out if you're trying to operate on every level, but you got to know when to donate a little more time to certain areas of your life. You shared a great video the other day, man, that I think was powerful. It was talking about family, and you talking about headships, especially like being man of the house. And I think it's like to our male listeners out there who are fathers, husbands, sons, brothers, whatever, when the headship is off, the whole ship sinks.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's huge, man, and the
Yeah.
importance of that.
Fish think from the head, right? And so dude, if you're not in the right way, your whole family feels that. We all know as a man, we walk in, we're in a bad fucking mood. The energy in the house drops, right? It's just, so we got to hold ourselves accountable to maintaining that and being clear that the way we operate, especially as men, dude, it affects everybody else, right? People have to trust in our ability. And so we got to be able to manage emotionally better. And that doesn't mean swallowing it. It means understanding it so we can manage it better. Make it better, not fake, right? Actually raise your frequency up so you're better. And that comes if you've done the correct things in the day. Yeah, business might not be perfect, but you're going to feel better about the situation than if you've made some bad moral choices, succumbed to some immediate gratification. All these things just chip away at us a little bit.
No, I love that, man. And it's being able to fight off the temptations that we face every day and the things that hold us in bondage. But man, it's been powerful, man, to see this transformation. I didn't even realize you got home not too long ago. Was it like January of 24?
Yeah, pretty much, man.
And then, you've been hitting the ground running. So kind of before we wrap up, man, just talk a little about what you're doing now and also how the audience can reach out to you.
So I do everything one-on-one coaching. Right? What does that look like? It's mindset, fitness, lifestyle. Right? We start with the body, work on the mind, deliberate mindset training, morning process, daily blueprint. What do your macronutrients look like? What do your micronutrients look like? What are your hormonal blood panels? All these things are things that when you start looking at and you start going, oh, a lot of times there's physiological reasons for things. So don't be fighting against the tide. Let's stack the deck in our favor in a lot of different capacities, and things start to align. Business gets better when we get better. So families get better when we get better. We're the engine that drives all of it. Not to mention our own inner peace and clarity improves, which is what it's all about. It's what everybody's chasing. So anybody can get a hold of me at my website, taylorcavanaugh.com. That contact form goes right to me. I don't outsource anything or do anything AI. The Instagram, TCAV Official. Once again, those DMs go direct to me. And my YouTube, Taylor Cavanaugh, TCAV TV, where we go into some of the deeper principles. I do everything stream of consciousness, no edits, no stops as far as the direct videos. And then I do gym sessions, different characters around the country, and we just do it's like a podcast standing up, throwing weights around.
I love that, man. And I'm looking forward to, I think it's next month, man, you and Jimmy are starting your new show. And
yeah, we'll be launching a
tuned into
podcast.
that.
Yeah, other than Honorable Podcast, me and Jimmy Watson and Mighty Warrior. So that's going to be really, really interesting, man, to be able to break into some of the backstories.
It's two awesome guys coming together, man. And, his story is another one that's just, a story of faith and overcoming, the unthinkable. But brother, I know you got to go here. So you got any final words for the audience before we let off here?
Man, if you're hearing something, let's change something. Change it. Simple. Listen, do.
Awesome advice, brother. Well, thank you very much, man. And we'll look to get this out here pretty soon. But appreciate having you on, man. Look forward to staying in touch.
Be on the track. Appreciate everybody watching. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, brother.